wind had teeth that night. It bit through the sandstone bones of the old chapel, rattled loose shutters, and moaned through the cracked bell tower like a soul not yet forgiven. Isabel Maren sat in the nave, wrapped in her threadbare shawl, mending a child's tunic she'd found abandoned weeks ago near the dry well. There were no children here, hadn't been for years, but she kept the cloth and mended it anyway, as if fixing it could stitch something else back together too. She heard it before she saw it, the knock. Not wind, not a branch. A sound too measured to be accidental. 3 hard raps against the chapel's heavy oak door. Then silence. Her fingers froze on the needle. No one came here. Not anymore. Since the army carved roads through Comanche land and left only dust and graves behind. The knock came again. Louder. Urgent. Isabel stood slowly. Her knees ached, like the desert knew her sins. At the door, she paused, palm flat against its old wood. She didn't ask who it was. She already knew someone desperate. No one knocked like that unless the world had closed every other door. A voice came through. Cracked, accented, female. "We seek refuge. Please." Isabel slid the bolt, the metal shrieking like protest. The wind pushed in first, then shadows, 9 of them. Women, all dust-covered, blood-smeared, eyes darting like cornered coyotes. One clutched her swollen belly. Another carried a girl no older than 10. They looked at Isabel as if she were the last dry well in a dying land. The one who spoke stepped forward. Her face was marked not just with dirt and blood, but with something deeper. Loss. Resolve. "My name is Tula," she said. "We are hunted." "By who?" "Soldiers," Tula said, voice steady. "Led by a man in black robes, a priest." Isabel's breath caught. She hadn't heard that name in years. Not since Elijah had left this chapel in a blaze of scripture and smoke, claiming the Lord had sent him to cleanse the land. Isabel stepped back, opening the door wider. "Then you'd best come in." The women filed in, silent except for the baby's soft whimper and the wind screaming outside. Isabel barred the door again, knowing what she had just done. She had chosen a side. And this chapel forgotten by the world was about to remember what fire felt like. She didn't pray. Not anymore. But she whispered something under her breath anyway. "Forgive me, Lord. I won't be quiet this time." The fire in the chapel's hearth hadn't been lit in weeks. Isabel fed it slowly dry mesquite bark, scraps of cottonwood until the flames licked high enough to cast the women's shadows against stone walls. The chapel glowed, not with holiness, but with something older. Survival. They sat close together, quiet, drinking the weak tea Isabel managed to boil from sage and wind-dried mint. The youngest among them barely a girl clutched, a cracked porcelain doll Isabel didn't remember owning. It had appeared, like them, out of the desert. Tula sat apart. Her eyes never left the flame. She held a short knife in one hand, not raised, not threatening, just present. Like her. "Tell me," Isabel said. Her voice was low, but it carried. Tula nodded once, slow. 3 days ago, soldiers came to our village near the canyon. Said we were trespassing. That the treaty no longer applied. We had no weapons. No warning. A pause. One of the women behind her wiped at her face, smearing dirt and tears together. "They burned the grain stores first," Tula continued. "Then the homes. When we ran, they shot the men. The children." Her jaw locked. "We took what we could. Hid in the rocks. Then we heard the voice." "Whose voice?" Tula turned to her. "He called himself Brother Elijah. Said he was cleansing the land of heathens. That God spoke through fire and lead." Isabel's grip tightened on her teacup. "He was here once. Years ago. This chapel was his. He baptized settlers, preached salvation. But he wanted war more than peace. He found it," Tula said. "And he is bringing it here." Outside, the wind had softened, but it carried a hum. Distant. One of the women, the one with child, spoke for the first time. "Why help us? We are strangers. We bring danger." Isabel looked around. At the crucifix, half burned from the last fire. At the altar where she'd once knelt. At the faces in the flame women who had nothing, but still held each other like armor. "I didn't open the door because you were weak," she said. "I opened it because I was once too scared." Tula's eyes met hers, sharp. Then fear has served its time. A sudden knock echoed again, this time lighter, faster. A signal. The soldiers had found their trail, and the night was far from over. The chapel was dark again. Isabel had doused the fire when the signal knock came, 2 quick raps. A pause. 1 slow. It was how soldiers marked clearance, which meant someone out there knew their habits far too well. She stood at the old altar, hands pressed against its chipped surface. Once, she'd bled haircut her palm and swore to serve something greater than herself. That was before the war. Before Brother Elijah. Tula approached quietly. "You knew him too well," Isabel said. "He came west in '63, claimed visions, preached salvation through obedience, but his gospel always came with a rifle. He killed our seer, burned her alive in front of us, called it purification." Isabel didn't flinch. "He believes it. That's what makes him dangerous." Outside, the wind whispered through broken stained glass, bringing the smell of dry sage, and saddle oilmen were near. Watching, waiting. Isabel glanced toward the bell tower. If they were coming, it would be before sunrise. Another woman approached Rosa, the one with the round belly. She held a small pouch in her hands. Inside, papers, crumpled and blood-stained. Tula explained. She took them from a fallen officer. Orders, names, maps. Isabel spread them on the altar. A map marked with red ink. Circles around villages. Arrows toward reservations. A list of officers. And at the bottom, a signature she hadn't seen in 8 years. Chaplain Elijah R. Beckett. He had signed it with a cross beside his name, as if God himself had co-signed the slaughter. "He's planning more," Rosa whispered. This was just the beginning. Isabel stared at the parchment. Her past looked back at her. Not just the war, the silence afterward, the prayers she stopped saying, the women she never helped. Until now. "He used to preach in this room," Isabel said. "Called Comanche children. Devil-born. Said fire was the only sacrament they'd understand." "And you?" Tula asked. "I believed him. Until I saw what fire really did." The chapel groaned as the wind shifted. Horses again. Closer now. One of the women pointed to the bell tower. A faint glint of brass. Spyglass. They were being watched. Tula stepped beside her. "We need to move. You know this land. You can get us out." Isabel didn't answer right away. She looked up at the cracked crucifix, then to the bullet holes in the chapel walls, then down to the names on the list. "No," she said quietly. "We don't run. Not yet. Elijah built his altar on lies. Tonight we tear it down." Isabel stood beneath the chapel's cracked dome, staring at the wall where Brother Elijah once hung his sermon scrolls. Nothing left now but ash stains and the faint shape of a cross burned into the plaster. The irony wasn't lost on her. This house of mercy was about to become a place of reckoning. The women were readying. Tula sharpened blades on stone, slow and steady. Even the woman with the infanta girl, barely older than 20, checked the revolver Isabel had given her. 6 bullets. She had named each one after someone they'd lost. Outside, the wind had died. The quiet was worse. It meant the soldiers were close enough not to need horses anymore. Isabel lit a stub of candle, then blew it out. 1 breath, 1 flame, a warning signal to the women hiding in the old cellar. The plan wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But if they waited, death would come on someone else's terms. Tula came to her. "It's almost time. I know. You don't have to stay." Isabel looked her in the eye. "I left once. That's why they're still hunting." From behind the altar, she pulled out a small wooden box. Inside, one thing, a Bible with no cover and blood dried on the edges. Not hers. Someone else's. She held it to her chest, not to pray, but to remember who she'd been before silence became her penance. Tula nodded toward the chapel windows. "We'll be outnumbered. Then we make it count." A creak from the chapel doors. A shadow passed along the wall. Isabel turned to the women. "Positions." They moved without question. 2 to the choir loft with rifles, 3 by the back door, blades ready. Isabel and Tula stayed at the front. She looked to the old pulpit, dust-covered, empty. She stepped behind it, placed the Bible down, and whispered just loud enough for those closest to hear. "They came here for blood. Let them find truth instead. Then she looked to the doors and waited. The doors didn't break open like thunder. They eased, quiet as breath, pushed by steady hands trained to kill. The first soldier stepped in, rifle raised. His boots left muddy prints on the stone floor. He didn't expect gunfire. He expected surrender. He got neither. From the choir loft, 2 shots cracked like dry wood snapping. The soldier fell without a sound. Another stumbled in behind him, confused, then vanished beneath a blade in the dark. Screams erupted. Orders shouted. Chaos poured into the chapel like a flood. Tula moved like a wraith, her blade flashing in and out of shadow. Isabel fired twice from behind the pulpit, each shot deliberate. She wasn't fast, but she was steady. And when she ran out of bullets, she didn't reload. She grabbed a broken crucifix from the wall and waited. A soldier lunged at her young, frightened, sweating through his uniform. She ducked under his rifle and slammed the crucifix into his throat. He collapsed, choking on scripture and blood. At the back of the chapel, Rosa screamed. Isabel turned just in time to see the girl with child fall to her knees, her belly cradled, her eyes wide with pain. A soldier had struck her not hard, but enough to do damage. Tula saw it too. She moved before Isabel could speak. A single throw her knife took the soldier in the side of the neck. He dropped before his rifle hit the floor. Outside, more boots approached. But then the sound that stopped everything. A baby cried. Not from inside the chapel. From outside. Close. Isabel froze. Another child? Or a trap? The crying was soft, wet. The way newborns wail in fear, not pain. A sound that cut through the gunpowder and prayers. She met Tula's eyes. That's no trick. Tula's face hardened. It changes nothing. It changes everything. Isabel dropped the empty rifle, ran to Rosa, knelt beside her. Blood was pooling beneath the girl's legs. Her breaths came sharp and shallow. She needs help, Isabel said. Now. We don't have time, Tula whispered. They'll burn us out before dawn. Then we don't wait. A beat passed. Then, behind them, the chapel door opened again, not by force, but by choice. And into the chaos stepped Isabel, unarmed, hands raised, walking into the storm outside toward the sound of the child's cry. The desert night wrapped around Isabel like an old sin familiar, cold, and too close to forget. She moved slowly, hands still raised, toward the weeping sound tucked between 2 wagons near the chapel wall. There, in the crook of an old supply cart, a woman huddled, cradling a baby to her chest. Her dress was torn, her cheek bruised, but her body blocked the wind with a mother's stubbornness. I won't let them take her, the woman whispered, voice shaking. I'm not here to take, Isabel said softly. I'm here to end this. Behind her, footsteps crunched, gravel measured, heavy, sure. She didn't turn. She knew that rhythm. Had followed it once like scripture. Still walking toward the fire, Isabel, a man's voice said, smooth as oil on water. Even after all these years, she turned slowly. Brother Elijah stood beneath the moonlight, his cassock dark but clean, not a wrinkle out of place. A gold cross gleamed on his chest, but the shine didn't reach his eyes. He looked older, but not worn, like time had feared him too. Still using God to light the fuse? Isabel asked. He smiled. God doesn't light fuses. He guides the righteous. You, of all people, should remember that. You guided men to burn children alive. They were savages. They were mine, Isabel said, voice low. That stopped him. For a second, just one, his jaw clenched. Then it passed. We're cleansing this land, he said. Order from chaos, faith over filth. The only filth here is you. He raised a pistol not aimed, not yet. You opened your door to traitors. You let them bleed in a holy place. They bled long before they reached my door. Behind her, the baby cried again. Elijah didn't flinch. You're going to die tonight, Isabel. Not because I want it, because you chose the losing side. Isabel looked at the mother, then the child, then back at Elijah. No, she said. Tonight, I choose to stop losing. From the chapel came a flicker, then a second. Tula had lit the altar. The fire caught fast dry wood, old prayers, broken pews soaked in kerosene. Flames licked up the chapel walls like they'd been waiting years to rise. Elijah turned, stunned, and in that breath, Isabel moved. She lunged, knocking the pistol aside, and the two of them fell into the dust. She didn't need to win the fight, just hold him long enough. Behind her, the fire roared like a choir remembering its purpose. By morning, the chapel was gone. Only smoke remained thick, dark, and honest. Flames had stripped away every lie the walls once held. Isabel sat on a rock a short distance away, hands blistered, dress singed. But she was breathing. And so were the women. Brother Elijah wasn't dead. Not yet. They dragged him from the dust after the fire had driven back his men blinded by smoke, too scattered to mount another attack. Tula had wanted to end him with her knife then and there. No trial. No mercy. Only silence. He doesn't deserve breath, she had said, blade trembling in her hand. Isabel placed a hand on hers. He deserves something worse. To answer. Now, the women gathered beneath a low bluff. Elijah sat tied, blood crusted at his lip, but his eyes still defiant. Rosa's baby cried softly in her arms. The girl swayed, but stayed upright. Isabel turned toward the remaining group. We have a choice, she said. We kill him here, and it ends clean. But no one sees it. No one hears what he did. They'll write us as ghosts and killers. Tula crossed her arms. You think they'll believe us? They'll believe proof, Isabel said, holding up the blood-stained orders, the maps, the list with Elijah's name. And if we deliver him alive, shackled, breathing, he becomes the face of every lie they've told. Elijah laughed, low. You think they'll listen to women and savages? I think they'll listen to a priest, Isabel said, when he screams the truth to save his soul. I agree. Tula hesitated, torn between fury and purpose. Then she lowered her knife. Let him live. Let him burn slower. That night, they loaded Elijah onto a broken wagon. He spat and swore, but no one answered. The desert had taken his pulpit. His God would have to wait. Isabel walked beside Rosa as they began the slow journey north. Her feet ached. Her heart, too. But for the first time in years, it beat towards something bigger than guilt. They'll try to silence us, Tula said as they rode. Erase it. Then we carve it into stone, Isabel replied. Testify in every town from here to Denver. And after? Isabel looked at the sky. Dawn pushed through the smoke, soft and gold. After, we build again. Somewhere they can't burn. Behind them, the chapel smoldered. Before them, truth waited. They reached the border station at dusk, 3 days after the fire. The sky was pale with dust, the wind dry and sharp, but no one turned back. Not Isabel, not Tula, not the baby wrapped in faded cloth, breathing quietly against Rosa's chest. They came as survivors, not ghosts. And this time, they had names. They had truth. The station clerk blinked when he saw them 9 women, a wounded priest in chains, and a former nun with soot in her hair. I need to speak to a federal marshal, Isabel said. An hour later, they did. In a back room smelling of ink and old sweat, Isabel laid out the orders. The map. The list. Then, finally, the man himself, Brother Elijah, silent for once, head bowed not from humility, but because he knew the end had begun. The marshal didn't speak for a long time. When he did, it was quiet. You'll need to testify. We came ready, Tula said. And they did. Over the weeks that followed, the truth unraveled like a torn flag in wind. Papers printed names, survivors gave statements, officers were arrested, commanders disgraced. What began in a forgotten chapel echoed all the way to the territorial capital. Brother Elijah stood trial in Tucson, no pulpit to hide behind, no scripture to twist. He died in prison, and the women, those who had been hunted, were given more than apologies. They were granted protection, land, and a chance to rebuild what had been taken. As for Isabel, she did not stay. Her work in the courtroom ended when the truth stood firm on its own feet. One morning, before the sun rose, she saddled an old mule and slipped out quietly. Tula found her at the edge of the camp. You're not staying? No, Isabel said. I burned my past, but I haven't built my future yet. Tula nodded. You'll find it. I'm not looking for heaven, Isabel said. Just a place to be useful. Then go west, Tula smiled. Winds behind you. They didn't say goodbye. Some partings are softer than words. Weeks later, travelers in distant towns would speak of a woman with ash on her boots and fire in her eyes, who rode into broken places and left them standing straighter. They said she never stayed long, but always left something better behind. They called her Sister of the Wind, and when children asked what she believed in, they'd answer the same. That kindness isn't weakness. That truth has teeth. And that sometimes, to stay human, you have to set fire to the things that once made you holy. Thanks for listening. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos.